Well, this is going to be an interesting morning. I hope you guys are having a good morning, a good Sunday. I'm sat here just kind of waking up, getting ready for the day, enjoying some morning coffee. And I figured I'd come talk about some of the news that has just kind of released. Slasher for ESPN has just reported that Overwatch 2 is indeed a thing and has given us some details. So cheers to anybody who's also drinking with me in the morning. And, for those of you who partake in some adult beverages, if you're watching this in the evening, cheers. Let's get into, the first thing on the docket that's kind of interesting. That has, I'm pulling from the report, which I'll link down below if you haven't caught it on your social media feeds, is that hero talents and in-game items are coming to basically a 4v4 story mission or PvE mode. So PvE is player versus environment, which is basically what it sounds like. It's a story mode. It's something that is not directly competing against other people, right? Hero talents is very interesting. And I will shamelessly plug something that I wrote years ago, basically kind of detailing a manifesto on how Overwatch could be a little bit deeper in terms of gameplay and mechanics, while also giving people something very tangible and something that they can kind of really get their hands on, and that's kind of EX abilities. I'll link that down below. Basically, you'd spend ultimate charge to augment abilities that you already have and make them into new abilities and give you more tools to kind of combat the game, right? That was years ago. I'll link it down below. I won't talk too much about it, but when I hear hero talents, that's kind of where my mind leads. Not necessarily saying that the system is going to be the same. You hear hero talents, that's not necessarily spending resources to gain any kind of boons or buffs, but something passive that you're doing before you get into a game, or maybe even when you get into a game, that does something similar, where it's going to augment your ability or maybe even give you a new ability to kind of play around with, which is interesting. I don't know, this kind of leads me down the rabbit hole that this is kind of more of a PvE centric expansion to the game rather than a sequel, because it is kind of splitting the player base in two, which is something that I know that Blizzard in general has not been fond of in the past. I think that's been one of their big gripes on creating a lot of the remastered and sequels to games, where, like in let's say like you're playing World of Warcraft, right? When you release a remastered of the base game, like just the original World of Warcraft vanilla, it's such a polarizing separation of players that you're still making money there, but you're separating the two player bases apart, and that's something that I'm interested to see the business and this decision making on why that seems to be changing. But maybe even that in that speculation, maybe that isn't necessarily fair to call this just a PvE expansion, because there is other details like this new game mode, this new map that's coming, that maybe this isn't just a PvE expansion. Maybe this is going to be the new game that we all migrate to in 2021. For anybody who might be seeing this video that isn't familiar with my channel, I've mostly cover and follow and report on the competitive Overwatch community. So most of what I'm looking at is going to be through that lens. So with the PvE mode, it is going to be changed in terms of how many players are going to be playing the game. So this PvE story mode that's going to be placed in Rio de Janeiro, which again we have to kind of tie to Lucio, is going to be a 4v4 game type or game mode, compared to Overwatch's 6v6, the normal competitive standard gameplay decision that they launched with the game. And that kind of, again, leads me to a difference in identity, where normally we've seen Overwatch be very streamlined in their approach, and we want to kind of keep everybody playing on the same patch, and that, it goes in regards to the semi-professional leagues and the professional leagues with the Overwatch League. They want to kind of make sure everybody's playing the same patch for the most part, make sure the casual audience is seeing the professional players play on the same patch with the same heroes and the same, balance. it ties everything together and makes it very homogenous in a way. Now with this 4v4 kind of separation, this different world, is that something that could be implemented in Overwatch in the future? Is that something that may be a change for competitive Overwatch? Is competitive Overwatch going to be 4v4? Or is it going to still remain 6v6? That's definitely something that I'm going to be asking the developers at BlizzCon, which I will be attending come this weekend. So definitely interesting to see hero talents and in-game items. When I hear in-game items, I hear, I think of, raids and dungeons and loot, almost like a Borderlands type of game. So is this going to be coming to Overwatch as well? Might we see a raid of some sort, maybe like a 15-player raid where you and your friends get together and select a bunch of different Overwatch heroes and try to defeat a souped up Doomfist, or what exactly does that look like? Is that something that's going to be possibly on the horizon? And to be fair, I think PvE gets a bad rap in terms of just how it's been bastardized within everyday speak. PvE doesn't necessarily have to mean non-competitive. We've seen the rise of speedrunning with Awesome Games Done Quick, and the Mythic Dungeon Invitational in the World of Warcraft is kind of have a cult following behind it, where people are really trying to push their boundaries, not necessarily against one another directly, but indirectly in terms of leaderboards and this, that, the other thing. So could we see, possibly timed events or something akin to the Mythic Plus system coming in from World of Warcraft, and maybe even Diablo, the levels of rifts that you have to compete with your friends at? Could that be implemented in Overwatch and Overwatch 2? I think it's certainly a possibility, which kind of brings us to Overwatch's, I think one of the bigger announcements in this report is the 5th game mode. Overwatch 2 is going to be implementing a 5th game mode called Push, along with your 4 others, your Hybrid, your Assault, your Escort. There's one more. I'm not going to sit here and name them all off. You know them. You play the game. So Push is not very detailed. We don't know exactly what it means or what exactly it's going to play like. But I have I have ideas of what this could be. When I hear Push, my brain immediately goes to like Escort, right? So this could be a very Escort centric game mode where there's a neutral payload, let's say. So there's going to be a neutral payload, and both teams have static respawns. They run to the payload, and you're trying to fight, kind of like on Control, or more commonly referred to as King of the Hill. When you fight on King of the Hill, it's a neutral objective. You rush, and you're trying to control the objective. What I think Push could be is neutral Escort, basically. So you have an Escort, string with a payload in the center of the map. Both teams are trying to fight over control of the payload, and you're pushing it along a path. And once time runs out, whoever has pushed it the farthest, or whoever has control of it at the end, something like that, could be determined the victor. Could be a best of 3. Maybe it's just one long game mode. Maybe depending on how far you push it, you somehow extend the time. Who's to say? Maybe you score points based on checkpoints along the string. Again, just kind of wildly speculating, but when I hear Push, that's kind of where my mind leads. And to be, I mean, like I say, that's the most interesting thing. I don't think for most people it's going to be the most interesting thing. I think the most the beautiful, the most sexy thing that's kind of in this report is that there is going to be a new hero, which was kind of going against the antithesis of what, or I guess that's a double negative, isn't it? I guess what this report is saying is that there is going to be a new hero, which is going against some of the rumors that we heard earlier, that there wouldn't be a new hero. They've kind of abandoned that. They're going to be all hands on deck trying to get this game finished. Well, apparently Echo is going to be our next hero, and we've seen her teased already, which was always kind of fun. We saw her in the Ashe cinematic with McCree. I don't know if any of you thought that she was going to be the next hero instead of Ashe, but when I saw her in the opening ceremony, sitting in the little Overwatch World Cup arena, I definitely was like, oh, that's the new hero. What does she like? What does she do? Like, my mind started speculating already. And it turned out to be Ashe, which was, you know, definitely cool. Ashe is really fun to play, but Echo is always been a kind of an enigma in the Overwatch community. So I'm glad to see her, or it, you know, it kind of resembles a robot, but it seems feminine, so that's why I refer to it as a she. It's interesting to see this new hero kind of being implemented in the game. I can't imagine it's going to be a tank. Seeing how Sigma was just released. I do have some how would you put it? Most heroes in Overwatch have kind of two roles to them, right? The game is separated into three roles, you know, obviously tank, support, and DPS. But certain heroes, I would say most heroes, have two of those roles, with a predominant role and a kind of a secondary role, right? So you have something like Roadhog, right? You have a tank, you know, primary, but with a very much a DPS secondary kind of flavor to it. It's very much same with like Brigitte, right? A support body, arguably, with a tank kind of offshoot. Echo could be maybe, let's say, a support DPS, or could maybe just be a very generic support, very based around supporting your team, very much healing centric, or maybe even, you know, utility support. That would be kind of interesting, seeing how we haven't had one of those since Lucio. And I guess you could argue that Symmetra is kind of like a utility support. At least she used to be. These days, not so much. But yeah, she seems really cool. I think she's going to be a support, unless Blizzard kind of uses that against us. That, you know, very feminine, very kind of like curved robot, very frail looking. Well, not frail, but just like not beefy. It doesn't have a beefy silhouette, so I can't imagine it's going to be a tank. But they could be using that against us, and using the fact that, you know, that is a very common, you know, synthesis from what we see into, you know, saying it's going to be a support, and maybe with a cinematic or some sort of short story, we learn that she's actually a DPS and uses some sort of like psychic, or I don't know, some sort of powers to damage her enemies. We'll have to see. Something maybe like Moira uses some sort of like dark energy. I don't know. I'm not very proficient in Overwatch lore. Maybe you could, you know, talk to me about WoW lore, but Overwatch lore I'm not so good at. But yeah, I just wanted to come in and talk and really be excited about Overwatch 2. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it, which again, the ESPN report, I believe, says it is going to be on the floor in and around BlizzCon. So yeah, definitely keep your eye out for that. And yeah, thanks for watching and tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Yeah, let me know what you think about Overwatch 2 so far. If you're excited, you're worried, let me know, because I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I've got my reservations, but cautiously optimistic, I'd say. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.